lately, as I've been writing and editing my next book, I want it to be a little lighter than the ones that I've written in the past and maybe add some humorous scenes here and there. And so I've been thinking a lot about, well, what makes things funny? How do you add funny scenes? And that may come naturally to some people. It doesn't to me. It's not super hard, but I'm not a funny writer. I don't write romantic comedy, for example. I write romance and occasionally there's a light moment, but how do you add more humor to your story? If you want to write funny scenes, how do you do that? So I'm going to talk about that today. Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia and I am a women's fiction writer, romance author, and let's talk about being funny.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
So what makes a scene funny? I think for some people, it just comes naturally. It's part of their personality. They are just naturally funny people. But for some of us, we have to work a little harder. But I've even heard like comedians, this is their job, is to make people laugh, right? But what I've heard them say is that they work at it, right? They think that something is funny. They're not really quite sure. So they test it out. They go out into an audience, they say, they give do their little skit, they tell their little story and see what happens. If the audience laughs, then okay, it was funny, it was successful, then they do it again. And if it kind of flopped, then they think, well, maybe that wasn't as funny as I thought it was, right? And so they don't use it again, or they might try it 2 or 3 times again. If it doesn't work, then they cut it out of their act. The problem for writers is that we don't have that opportunity, right? We're not there when readers are reading something that we think is funny. So we have to try to hope that it comes across the way that we expect it to come across, that we think it's funny, and it really is. I spoke to other people that actually do write funny novels or funny scenes. And so my friend Margot Candela is a really funny writer. She just, and she's one of the people I think it comes naturally for. That's her personality. She thinks, the way she thinks is, she has these funny comebacks and she's able to put those into a novel. So I asked her, okay, so how do you do this? How do you write a funny scene? And what she said, I will quote her. So author of The Neapolitan Sisters, in case you don't know who Margot is. So definitely look for her book, because her book, again, is full of funny scenes, serious and funny. So that makes it a really nice book to read, right, when you can get both. What she says is that humor finds its way into my writing pretty much the same way it happens during real life interactions and conversations. I make an observation, and depending on where I am and who I'm with, I don't filter it. So, right, so like I was saying, I think that it comes a little naturally to her. But what is she saying? She observes things that really happen, right? She observes life and she tries to find what's funny in it. And then if she does, and it's appropriate, then she'll say it. She'll say that, she'll make the joke, or she'll say whatever she's thinking that is funny. So I think one of the first requirements in order for us to be humorous or to find humor in our normal world is to be observant, to see what might be funny about a situation. So it depends on how you're looking at something. If you're seeing something, and you could find the humor or the funny part of it. There's who hasn't like gone out to a restaurant or whatever, and you have something happen that could end up being funny. I remember going to a restaurant with my husband and my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law was saying how cold she was. And the waitress says, oh, well, yeah, it's not cold for me. And then she left, or, I don't think it's cold. And we thought, what? So that could be funny, right? Because it's like, that's a weird answer from me. instead of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Let me go check on the temperature or something." It's like, "Oh, well, it's not really cold for me." It's like, "Well, of course it's not. You're working, right? But it's cold for your guest who's eating at your restaurant." But it could be funny, right? You could make that into a funny scene. So looking and observing at what's going on could help you to create humor or to add humor to your stories. So what I found in stories that do make me laugh or that I think are kind of cute, right, is that the writer is kind of clever. So has a clever way of looking at things. So not only are they making these observations, but they're looking at it in a unique kind of clever, funny way. And Candela actually mentioned that she never really sets out to be funny. So she says, "Well, I never set out to be funny. I found that there are natural places for humor to bring out aspects of the story or round out a character." So exactly what she's saying, right, is that she makes those observations, and when she notices that, oh, this could be a funny thing here, right? So she notices what could be funny about a situation, and then she cleverly writes about it. And I think that that's what distinguishes really good writers from okay writers, right? Is that they will notice certain things and that they will find a unique way to make that even funnier, to add it into a scene, to make other characters react to that funny situation. So I think that's a talent, but I think it can be learned as well to look at those moments and then think of how can I be really clever about this and make it into a scene that could be a little more humorous than maybe it was. And Margot Candela does have, again, many scenes, but one of them, when I asked her, well, which one did you think was the funniest scene in your book? And she says, well, one of them I really liked was when one of the characters, she's a bride, she's going to get married, and her boyfriend, who she doesn't really like, she doesn't really like this guy, but she's going to marry him, and they're going through Target, through the registries, kind of scanning the things they want to put on their registry, and the male character is just kind of messing around. He's doing all kinds of kind of funny things, right? He's playing with the scanner and he's saying funny things. And again, that she took a normal, ordinary situation where a couple is at a regular store, right? But made one of the characters kind of act out, kind of like little boyish, weird things, right? That like a teenage guy would do, which is probably one of the reasons she doesn't like the female character doesn't really like him very much. Is because he's sort of silly, sort of immature. And so she brings that out in that scene, and it makes it into a very light and funny and very likable, actually, scene. You kind of like both the characters because she's annoyed at him and he's just having this grand old time and doesn't even realize that he's being annoying, right? So sometimes that can be funny. So just looking at things that happen in ordinary life, observing them and thinking of clever ways to make it even funnier or make it or bring out the funny parts of that experience. Okay, something else that I've observed in the scenes that I think are humorous is that it's kind of quick. It doesn't take a long time, right? The setup may take a while, so the things are happening, but all of a sudden the funny part just comes and it's really fast. Even in stand-up comedy, you'll see that, right? They tell you a story, and then all of a sudden they throw in a twist, and it's really quick and it's funny, right? And another novel that I really enjoyed was titled Cassandra in Reverse, and it's the main character is a very, very high functioning autistic character, and she's very honest because she can't help herself. She just says what she feels, and she does not. She has a hard time at work. And so there was one particular scene where she's about to get fired, and her boss says to her, "It's your general demeanor I can't have in this office. You're rude, insubordinate, arrogant, frankly. You're not a team player. And do you know what this office needs?" And she says, "A better coffee machine," right? And so it kind of makes you laugh because it's fast, right? It's kind of quick. He's ranting and raving. He's angry. And then because this is her personality, right? Because she is autistic and she takes everything literally. It's like, what does this office need? Well, a better coffee machine, right? And he's like, what? And actually what he says is that's exactly the kind of bullshit I'm talking about, right? Because he is so frustrated with her that he can't understand why she's not, taking things serious, or why she doesn't really understand the context of what he's saying. So again, it's just very quick and it gets right to the point. It makes you laugh because you're not expecting that response from the character, right? Well, from her character, you start to expect it, but it's still funny because you don't know what she's going to say. So something that's fast and quick, I think, brings out the humor as well. And going back to what I just said, another thing that I think makes things funny is that you don't see it coming, right? You don't know what somebody's going to say, or you don't see that something odd is going to happen until it does. And if you think of, like the funniest comedians, like, Robin Williams and a few others that that used to be very, very quick, right? They would be talking, all of a sudden they would say something completely out of the ordinary, and that's what would make you laugh because you weren't expecting them to say that, and he was really good at doing that. So if you can manage to do that in your novels, then that also, if your characters, right, your characters are sort of unpredictable and they come up with some funny things that are unexpected, that will cause your reader to kind of be jolted and probably laugh if they're doing something funny. And so in novels, it would be the same thing. And right now I'm reading a Janet Ivanovich book titled Motor Mouth. And anybody who's read her books, you know that she's very funny, right? And she's very quick-witted, and her characters are as well. And so I read this scene and I thought this was a funny scene, or this little piece of dialogue. So it was a scene between Alexander, who's the protagonist, and Suzanne, which is the widowed of a murdered man. And so she says, I gave a new blast of alcohol a minute to register, and then I got right to the meat of the matter, because at this rate, Suzanne Wevo was slurping martinis. I worried that she wasn't far from incoherent. Did you happen to know the man who was murdered? I think his name was Wevo. Oscar Wevo, my asshole husband? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Me too. Someone killed the bastard before I could get to him, and I had it all planned out too. I was going to poison him. I was going to be nice and painful, or maybe it was going to be nice and painful. So you don't expect the widow to say that, right? You don't expect her to admit that she would have killed him, or that, just her reaction of not liking the guy and calling him an asshole when he's dead, right? So that I thought that was, just, again, it was just an unexpected, and it was funny, and it was the unexpectedness of it that made it funny. So why do readers and people like humor? Well, because first of all, of course, it lightens things up. It makes us smile, it makes us laugh, and it makes us enjoy the story. So it makes us like the characters better too, right? So when we find that we're reading a character that is funny, that makes us laugh, we tend to like the character. We can identify with that character a little bit more. They seem more human, they seem more real, because they can crack a joke here and there, or they can say something unexpected that makes us laugh. So we like it because it makes us sort of relax, and it makes us like the character more. Also, for writers, it's nice to add the humor, because what it does is it catches the reader's attention, right? So when when the reader is reading something that makes them laugh, it makes them want to read more. It makes them really attach themselves to that character and to find out more about the character. They don't want to close the book when they're laughing. They're enjoying themselves, right? So humor does keep your reader's attention a little bit more. Plus, laughing helps us to reduce stress. It makes us happy, releases endorphins. So it makes us feel better, makes us feel happier. And lastly, readers who read these funny scenes tend to like the book better, right? They like the book better. They like the author better. They want to return to the book. They want to buy more books from those authors who made them laugh, made them happy, made them smile. So although I think adding humor to books is not easy, unless it comes naturally to you, it's something you have to work at, or maybe kind of seeing how you can, during edits, maybe make a scene a little funnier. It's definitely worth the effort, because I think, again, you want to catch your reader's attention. And also it teaches you to be a better observer, to pay more attention to things around you, and to note when you think, wow, that could have been a kind of a funny thing, or that was kind of funny. Maybe I'll make a note of that, and maybe that might work its way into my novel. Also, read books that are funny and make notes of well, what exactly made you laugh about a certain scene, so that when you go back to write your story, you can think, okay, well, I remember reading this and how this worked, and it was that, it was the timing, it was the kind of that big that punch of that punchline right at the end, or it was that whatever it was, whatever you found that to be funny. It's like, oh, how did that author achieve that? Write it down, and then when it's time for you to think of a funny scene, how can you do something similar? Okay, so again, this is just a short video just to get you to think about humor. It's not a big thing. Again, I'm not I don't write humor as a rule, but I do like to add kind of some funny things every once in a while to lighten the mood, especially if you are writing a heavier or a darker book. There might be moments where you want to lighten it up a little bit, and humor is a great way to do it. All right, I hope this has made you think a little bit about how to add a little humor to your stories. And if the video was helpful, please hit the like button, share button, and come back next week.